Hi, I'm Tom Scarpella with Revology Cars, and this is a walk around of our latest production car. This is car number 36. It is a 1966 Shelby GT350, new reproduction licensed Shelby. So let's walk around the exterior first of all. So now a lot of the cars that we do are very, very true to the original design aesthetic, and some of the cars we do more recently, we deviate a bit more. Now with this car, we really went back to the roots and really tried to keep it as close as possible to the original Shelby design, but there's still, you know, some details that sharp-eyed viewers are obviously going to notice. Now at the front, we use the fiberglass hood scoop that the original Shelby had, but we have locking hood pins instead of the cable type hood pins. This is an option. You can still get the cable type hood pins if you prefer. You'll notice that there's actually a plate that seals the hood scoop because we don't have the old air cleaner on top of the engine. Obviously the air intake, which we'll see in a minute, it brings air in through the apron. So right. That would be it's like functionally it's not used. On the front of the car, you see the headlights are LED. This is the GE Nighthawk LEDs. They throw significantly more light for much better visibility at night, and the turn signals or park lamp are LEDs. So we use a white lens. We just thought the white lens looks nicer, but the actual LED is amber, so they'll flash amber. So going around the car to the left, you could easily mistake it for an original 66 GT350. Some of the things that annoy me when people do kind of recreations is they tend to mix and match some of the pieces, the body pieces. For example, the 66 Shelbys all had the plexiglass quarter window. They all had the scoop. Now, in our application, the scoop's not functional. The original Shelby had drum brakes in the back, and they really need cooling. We have a disc brake setup, so we don't need to channel air back there. The brakes get plenty of cooling as it is, and all that would do would just be a way for water to get in and create rust and things like that. So we're thinking about the long term. I like to say that the cars that we build, we're building for the next 50 years of Mustang. So at the back, again, very traditional in terms of its appearance, consistent with the original Shelby theme. So you've got the GT350 gas cap, the GT350 badge, the exhausts exit under the valance. Obviously the tip is a bit different. We use a Borla stainless tip. In fact, the entire muffler is a Borla system. The pipe design is our own specification that Borla builds for us, and we use Borla mufflers and resonators. So it's a full Borla system. On the, I guess I should also point out the no trunk key, no trunk cylinder key, and that's because we have remote keyless entry, so you're able to just use your remote to open up the trunk. There's also a release inside the car, and then there's an emergency release in the event that you didn't have battery power to open the trunk. Incidentally speaking, the battery is located in the trunk, both for weight distribution and just because there simply isn't any place to put it in the engine compartment, which we'll see in a moment. The trunk's upholstered. We have a nice light. This is actually a BMW part. We use a lot of different OEM components. Ford, GM, BMW. There's probably 10 or 12 different OEMs that we use their components.
Right.
Just because they work better, they're available, they're relatively inexpensive.
And there are a lot of little, the fully upholstered trunk, and that's not something you would find in a original car, right? So
correct.
And I noticed closing the trunk was a pretty interesting experience.
Yeah, closing the trunk is like no other vintage trunk, and that's because we're actually using a modern latch, and it's again use of current OEM hardware allows us to increase the functionality of the car. So it's not just about making it faster, making it handle better, making it stop better, which obviously all of those things are important, but it's also about making the doors shut better and tighter, and just giving you a better sense that it's a solid car. We rebuilt, this is a reproduction door outside latch, or handle rather, but we rebuilt each one of these, and we put in new internals in it so that it's a lot more precise. Your feeling when you open it is something much more substantial than you would get in an original type handle. Or certainly a reproduction.
And the closing is much more like a modern car. It has a very solid feel when you close that door.
Exactly. You notice there's no key cylinder on the passenger side because, again, with the remote keyless entry, it's not necessary to have a key cylinder. Although we do have one on the driver's side in the event that you have a battery loss. The other thing you'll notice is we've done away with the antenna for the radio. It's not necessary because we have a powered antenna like a modern car would have. The wipers are intermittent, so they're still in the same location, but now you've got intermittent speeds as well as the standard low and high that was the original car had. So under the hood, which
this is something quite new for the Revology line.
This is new. This is our Gen 3 Coyote engine. So I think your viewers probably will be familiar with the Gen 3, which came out in the 2018 Mustang GT. From the Gen 2, which was 2015 to 2017, to the Gen 3, horsepower increased from 435 to 460, and torque increased from 400 to 420 foot-pounds. And that's, it is noticeable. Not a huge difference, but it is definitely noticeable. Obviously, our car is significantly lighter than current Mustang GT.
Right.
It's about 550 pounds lighter. So that power in this lightweight chassis means power to weight ratio is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah. Should feel good. It's actually slightly better than a Ferrari F430. So it's you'll surprise a lot of people at stoplights and around corners too if you have that opportunity. Gen 3 was, although the engine may seem to be evolutionary, there's actually quite a lot about it that's new. And Steve, I know you actually did a really nice article on the Gen 3 when it first came out, which we used to help us kind of familiarize ourselves with.
Yeah, I think if you just subtly look at it, you think, oh, well, it's not really that big a deal, but the engineers really did change quite a bit on this engine to improve the performance.
Yep.
And it's kind of entertaining because they, when the Coyote first came out, I remember speaking with them, and they're like, oh, this is as much as we can get. I think it was 412. We're maxed out. And then they do the Boss, and they do the Gen 2, and then now they're up to this level. So, but how does that impact what you guys do as far as installing it in what's based on an older vehicle, but is a newer vehicle?
You know what? I would like to say that it's just plug and play. Ford would probably like me to say that it's just plug and play.
Yeah.
It's a bit more involved than that.
Yeah.
We did have to do a new fuel delivery system. It uses a return system. We had previously been running a returnless system, so we have fuel send and return lines.
Mm-hmm.
The pump is in the tank. We use an Aeromotive pump, and then we use an Aeromotive regulator. The regulator's located up here on the firewall.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar, these engines use what's called dual fuel, so they're port and direct injected. So that probably presents a little bit of a challenge from a fuel system for a car that it didn't come in.
Well, it does, because the Mustang has it's a variable fuel pressure delivery. So based on the engine map, it's able to deliver different fuel pressure. Now in the crate engine, it doesn't have that same capability. So we've actually had to set the fuel pressure based on, I guess, a different set of parameters than the original,
Sure.
Or than the factory setting. So it's just one of those things that you have to do when you're adapting a factory configuration to,
Right. But this does use the control pack from Ford Performance, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all Ford Performance. So the engine is obviously it's a new great engine from Ford Performance. In fact, we bought 5 out of the first 23 engines that were sold. So
Yeah.
we were really heavy into the Gen 3 as soon as the crate engine became available. It is the factory control pack. We use a Roush air intake. This is designed for the Gen 3. We modify it for use in our application. It draws air in through the apron.
Mm-hmm.
Gets fresh air in through the apron.
And it looks like it was born to go there. So you tweak that design, kind of cut it off and make it fit.
Yeah. Yep. The cooling package that we use is Coyote, so it has all the same surface area and the radiator. It's the same electric fan that the Coyote uses in the OEM application, so that we don't have any issues at all with cooling. The air conditioning system we use is a Vintage Air. We make some changes to it, but for the most part, it's the same Vintage Air kit that you could buy yourself. The braking system, well, obviously packaging a Coyote in a early Mustang architecture requires a lot of work to make space for the width of the engine. So we use a Hydro Boost brake booster, and we have to move it over about 1.5 inches outboard, and that necessitated development of an entirely new brake and clutch pedal support. So underneath the dashboard, all the hardware that ties that together is all new. It's designed in-house.
Yeah.
We designed it on CAD and modeled it, and then created all the parts and built the package. So now you've got a pedal package that's designed specifically for this application, and it's properly done. No levers and rods or anything nutty like that.
Right.
I mean, it's a proper actuation of the brake and the clutch pedal. And we'll see on the interior, we actually used the pads from the S550 Mustang. So
Okay.
now not only do you have the accelerator pedal from the S550, you also have the brake and clutch.
All right, let's take a look at that. You can see a little bit of what Tom's talking about there. Looks like OE pedals, but obviously a unique mounting for this car.
So this car has our partial leather interiors. We have 3 levels. The first level is it's vinyl. I hate to use the word vinyl because it conjures up images of that shiny plasticky stuff from the
Right.
60s, but it's modern vinyl, sometimes called leatherette.
Right.
You'll find it in Porsches and Mercedes, but they're used in areas that are not that noticeable, or areas that are prone to wear. So like the sides of the seats,
Sure.
we'll use that. And then the rest of the seat, like the part you sit on, the stuff that you touch would be leather.
Yeah.
This particular car uses a Porsche Napa leather. We source it from the same tannery in Italy that supplies Porsche. So even the door paneling, it looks like an original door panel, but this is actually leather covered, and the insert is a perforated leather, and the armrest is covered in leather. And
Lots of little touches.
Yeah.
But
the window crank handle actually activates the power window as well, so it looks original but is not.
well, very cool.
So we can activate the gauge button.
Okay.
So all the cars we build are equipped with a push button start. So this color indicates that the key was sensed being in the vehicle. So now with the green, I'm in accessory mode, so I'd be able to operate my accessories. and then the next button is the run mode. And so in the run mode, I'm able to, turn my lights on. And you can see that the gauges, it's a Dakota digital cluster, and they're backlit. It's all LED, so very, very visible at night. On this particular car, since it does not have a console, we have the door lock and unlock switch mounted right here.
Okay.
On this pod, you've got your auxiliary input and USB, so you can listen to your tunes. You've got a switch for the passenger side power window over here, so you don't have to reach all the way over. You're able to operate that here. As I mentioned, the window crank activates the power window. That's a source of endless amusement for a lot of people. And that's kind of the key stuff on the interior.
Okay. And this is the first iteration of this, what you're calling a Gen 3 version of the car.
Yeah, I suppose so we've delivered 29 cars so far. We recently took our 50th car order, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Of the 29 cars that we delivered, I'd say they kind of roughly fall into three categories, so sort of three evolutions.
Right.
1, 2, 3. This would be, the third sort of evolution of the car, and we're pretty much where we want to be in terms of spec. We're really happy with the overall performance of the car, the blend of performance, handling, drivability. They're really easy to drive. Basically time and development and trying to kind of work with different configurations. Now we did a lot of the design on CAD. We were able to simulate, do simulations that got us really close to where we thought we wanted to be, and so that when we actually got different springs and shocks and put them in cars and tested them, we weren't that far off, and frankly it didn't take that long to really dial it in. But we started with a what I would consider to be a really robust, well-designed front and rear suspension configuration that was sourced from TCI, Total Cost Involved. But we've modified it quite a bit. The rear has been modified to give it more travel, and that has allowed us to actually run a little bit softer spring, and so we improved the ride quality significantly, and really didn't compromise handling or grip at all. In the front, we've changed. We actually lowered the subframe slightly to give us more clearance for the Coyote engine, and that also necessitated some changes to retain the front suspension geometry. At the same time, we kind of tweaked it a little bit to give it a little bit better on-center feel. So, they're just kind of, I'll say, like, minor changes, but collectively they add up, to a pretty significant difference. And the thing is, I think this is really important, is that, when you start with an aftermarket component, that aftermarket component may not be designed for that specific application that you're building. So, because the aftermarket company typically is going to make a part that can fit a lot of different cars.
Sure.
Or make different
sub-assemblies that can fit a lot of different cars, and so they're not necessarily designing for one particular car, but we've optimized this design for this platform, 65 to 68 Mustang. So this weight and this size, wheelbase, everything is optimized for this specific platform, and that extra effort really pays off in terms of what the finished product is.
Well, unlike a lot of how you attack building these cars, it's an OE type development using CAD and designing it specifically for this application. So talk about how you've kind of adapted those principles over to what you do with Revology cars.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of parts that we've designed ourselves for the cars. Lady's giving us a thumbs up.
As she should.
And I would say most of the parts that we've designed have been to integrate the modern components with the vintage architecture. And that's kind of our sort of unique contribution, is what's the best way to combine these components that were never designed to be together, in the first place, but make them work together like they were designed to be together. And one good example is our pedal package. So we're looking under the hood, we can see that we had moved the brake booster and master cylinder outboard to give us space for the Coyote engine.
Right.
And well, that necessitated a complete redesign of the brake pedal support. That's this massive structure underneath the dash that the brake pedal hangs on, and obviously it's a safety item that everything has to be designed perfectly. So we redesigned or designed a new brake pedal support on CAD, and we gave it improved leverage as well through the clutch, because you have a much heavier clutch than you did, that you needed with the old engine, because we got approximately twice the horsepower. Right?
Yeah.
And then the clutch, the effort with the old clutch lever would be significantly higher. If you drove one of our early cars, one of the complaints was that the clutch effort was too high. So in redesigning the pedal package, we were able to improve the clutch effort. So now you've got, I won't say Honda-like clutch effort, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You could drive it all day long, and your left leg is not going to be sore. And then, of course, we place the pedals, where they're really, close together, so you're able to, heel and toe and drive it, properly like a sports car. We did that on CAD. That was probably the most elaborate thing that we've done to date on CAD. A lot of smaller parts on CAD. We use 3D printing. We do mainly for prototyping. 3D printing is a great way to get quick, real parts that you can test fit, things like that. We do a handful of production parts that are 3D printed. We're using to try to hunt down and attack sources of unwanted NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness. We're using actually, believe it or not, it's a $5 app that gives us a frequency readout, and so we can see which frequencies are that we need to attenuate. A few years ago that would have been a $40,000 piece of equipment.
Right.
Now you get it in a $5 app, but it gives us, the ability to just fine tune the sound deadening for the specific frequency that we're targeting. We actually use 5 different types of sound deadening material in the car, based on what we need to attenuate on a specific surface or a specific area of the car. So it's not just a bunch of Dynamat slathered all over the interior. It's actually, there's some science behind it.
Right.
And,
yeah, and you can tell just riding in the car here. sounds that you want to hear, like those, but you don't really hear a lot of the other sounds. And you said you had someone on staff specifically to chase problem sounds before you send these cars out.
Well, that's not his only job, but
Right.
that's one of his important jobs.
Yeah.
And he's a squeak and rattle guy.
Yeah.
So if there's a squeak or a rattle, then he's on it. And so he's got this institutional knowledge about all these areas that could potentially cause squeaks and rattles. We can track it down, we find why it happened, and we make sure that the production process is then addressed so that it doesn't happen again.
Right.
And so we've got it to where the cars are coming off the line maybe with one squeak or two squeaks, where, you know, a year ago you might have had 5 or 6 squeaks, and 2
Sure.
years ago I mean, you had 10 squeaks, you know.
Yeah.
But those things, they seem like not a big deal, but it's a big deal. And
Yeah.
the other thing is, as you continue to quiet the car down, you find more stuff that's wrong. So you know, you have a really loud exhaust that tends to kind of mask a lot of other problems. When you quiet the exhaust down, all of a sudden, wow, I didn't hear that before, you know.
Yeah.
And then you got wind noise, and you got to, you know, fix the wind noise, and then you find some other thing. So it's kind of a never-ending battle. So we're not quite at Rolls-Royce levels of.
Well, I don't know that you'd want that in a car like this. I think you want to hear a little bit, you know.
You want to hear a little bit,
Yeah.
but in reality, you can't get there. I mean, you can't get there. You want to maintain the basic design. You've got, you know, drip rails and these old-timey mirrors. And this stuff wasn't designed in a wind tunnel, you know?
Right. But that kind of speaks to kind of the evolution of these cars. You know, I drove one of the earlier ones, and it was a great car, but being behind the wheel of this car, you can tell there's a remarkable improvement as you've gone along. So talk about some of what you've learned overall in building these cars.
Little things that, you know, that you just address one by one, and then collectively you put it all together, and you get a car that's just really well sorted and really nice to drive.
So if someone wants to order one of these now,
Yeah. Well, visit our website. It's revologycars.com. REVOLOGYCARS.com. And all the information is there. You can download order guides. You order a car the way you would order a car from an OEM. You basically go through the order guide and you choose off a menu. They're not total custom builds. There are certain configurations that we offer that we have tested and we've proven, and you have to choose amongst those configurations. But then there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to colors and trims. And
Right.
you know, we've done a car. We did a car recently in a Ferrari Coyo leather. The client had a Ferrari and he wanted the same leather in his Mustang, Revology Mustang. We did that. We're doing another car, GT500, with a Ferrari charcoal leathers. Did one car with a Bentley leather interior. So there's a lot of flexibility in color and trim.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for the tour.
Thanks for the opportunity.